This is Sawyer Robertson, and you're listening to the Bearcast on SicEm365.com.
Welcome into the Bearcast on SicEm365.com, presented by WellMed Medical Management and Barefoot Campus Outfitter. Head on over to Barefoot Campus Outfitter in Waco or go to the website and use SicEm365 as your code to save 20% off your purchase. Today, I am joined by Colt Barber, and we are going to preview Baylor's matchup against UCF coming up on Saturday. The Bears have homecoming, and all the talk has not been about football this week. It's been about, what's Dave Aranda's hot seat looking like? What's this going to look like for the Bears going forward into this game? Whereas UCF, on the other hand, has still a lot to play for this year, and they're trying to kind of get their program on track with Scott Frost there now. And they've shown some real fight, I would say, this year, and been far better than I think a lot of people thought they would be, including myself. And they've been really competitive all season long. It's been pretty fun to watch. And now the Bears, who are kind of limping into this game, I'm sure UCF off the bye is kind of thinking that, this might be a time for them to really kind of make a statement this year early, I guess, in the middle point of the Big 12 season.
Yeah, I mean, they get this one and figure out how to get this one. They still have Oklahoma State at home on the schedule now. They'd also play Houston Tech and BYU. But this is a game that they need to get to a bowl game this year. And unlike Baylor, who's still very much in bowl contention, that's a big deal for UCF and not a big deal for Baylor. Like it's just a afterthought because of everything that's going on. Had Baylor, even had Baylor been coming off of a 6-6 year last year, I mean, the atmosphere would have been dreadful. Even trying to worried about bowl contention. So UCF is just a different motivation level. And we talked about this a lot last year of how motivated would teams be to play these late season games. We talked about it a little bit this year for Baylor's opponents. And now Baylor's in that position. How motivated are you in that? And maybe they show some life. Maybe they show some fight being at home. Maybe they still feel like there's something to fight for, to play for. And there are still 4 games left. So maybe we see that. But I just don't have high expectations. I think there's just 2 teams headed not necessarily in different directions for the long term, but just in the general outlook for this season. I don't like the matchup and how this one looks for Baylor. But if Baylor puts it together, maybe they figure out how to get a homecoming win. And I just don't know what that means for the ultimate part of the season, though.
Right. It's been a month since Baylor played a home game. The last time they played a home game was October 4th against Kansas State. Had a bye week, and then, of course, the matchups against TCU and Cincinnati. UCF rolls in to Waco at 4-3. Currently 1-3 in Big 12 play. Baylor is 4-4 on the season. So, yeah, a lot to kind of dive into here. Baylor's a 3.5-point favorite. The Open does a 4.5-point favorite. I assume that number is going to continue to get smaller and smaller, I would think, as the money comes in. The over-under is at 59.5. Kind of interesting that this is one of those games where when you kind of take a step back and look at it, it's like, for the longest time, UCF hasn't played great defense, but their offense has been really good with Gus Malzahn. They had some really good playmakers, John Rice Plumlee, those type, RJ Harvey. But this year, they've kind of flipped that script. They've been a really good defensive team, and then they've just kind of allowed their run game to carry them since they've had some shaky quarterback play. And that's great for this matchup against Baylor because the Bears have just been hemorrhaging yards on the ground. And then on the flip side, UCF's strength of their defense is their secondary and their pass defense, and Baylor's strength of their offense is the passing game. So it's really an interesting conundrum that feels like it sets up really well for UCF to have success in this game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You go back to the Kansas State game, and I remember watching the Kansas State game and UCF game in preparation for the Baylor game, and UCF ran the ball. They had explosives on the ground. It was like all of their plays offensively were just explosive plays. They had some short passes that turned into big plays, but nothing was downfield. It was just explosive run plays. Yeah. Or that's what it felt like. And that's not a good omen for this particular game. And I really like the running back Montgomery. Any quarterback that they're putting out there at this time is pretty mobile, depending on who they'll start this week. I know they've been through several quarterbacks. So
it'll be Taven Jackson this week, but Cam Fancher is by far the better runner. Taven is much better passer, though.
Yeah. And so, I don't really have expectations for this game, and I think that that's kind of scary. And because I don't want to say like I'm in tune with how the team feels, but for me personally, when I feel like I have dismissed myself from like truly digging into these games because it doesn't matter, then I feel like that's probably pretty close to how the team is feeling because I typically don't get like that. I really kind of felt that way in the 2023 season. And like I said, not that it correlates too closely, but I think it's indicative. And we mentioned about the website too, like fans, there's this segment of fans that were always that way. There's a segment of fans that have always been on the fence, and there's a segment of, but everybody's there now. It's just like, well, we don't really care. Like, let's move on. Let's get to the main show, and that's what potentially could happen with Dave Aranda, and that's unfortunate because there's still 4 games. Like, you could still go 8-4. Not that it's going to happen, but they're still on the table, and nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, no one wants to talk about that at all. Everyone's just kind of ready to turn the page and move on. I think that's going to be a big factor in this game and why it's so kind of weird to talk about this game because, you look at these two teams, there's no reason to say Baylor's just going to come in here and lose this game and get kind of blown out by UCF. Like, Baylor's been pretty competitive in a lot of their games this year, and this game probably should be a pretty competitive one based purely on talent and what the two teams have. But the problem is that there's this other side of it where if Baylor just comes into this game, you start hearing boos raining down, something negative goes wrong immediately. It's like this thing could really snowball on them. And that's why I think kind of the likely outcomes here, either UCF blows out Baylor or it's a close game. I don't really know that I see kind of any other unfolding of this game. And so that makes it really interesting and really tough to project what's going to happen because it's like what Baylor team's going to show up. Does this team still care at all about what's going on? Now, Dave Aranda can say, oh, yeah, great practice, or, oh, yeah, like we had a great meeting. Everything's trending in a positive direction. But it just kind of doesn't really feel that way based on the last 2 weeks coming off a bye.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the same conversation for 2 years now, and like you truly, like, when you're being competitive in games, and it's unlike the last 2 weeks, most of these games you felt like outside of a player here or there that let the game separate, Baylor was ultimately competitive in all those games. But the path of the TCU games and the Cincinnati games are not like that. That was more akin to not even really last year. I mean, like, we saw it once against Iowa State where it just kind of got out of hand late, but more like 23. Like, I don't remember anything that resembles that until 23 of the Cincinnati game where it's 24-0 at half.
That was the BYU game.
Yeah.
Last year, but they came back much quicker. Yeah.
But then the Cincinnati game, it was like, yeah, you made a valiant effort to get back in it, but then it separated at the end. TCU was out of hand, and that was just a miracle to get back in. So, like, those 2 games, much more like the 23 games than anything we saw last season. And that's discouraging. And not that the words become hollow, but they do to a great extent. It's like, okay, we know, like, you had a good practice. And I don't want to take that mindset and just transpose it all over everything. But that's how I feel right now. Like, that's been a theme with some fans of, I don't really care what Dave Aranda says. I don't want to listen to his press conferences because of this or this, because he's not engaging, because his words don't mean anything. But I have felt that more in the last 2 weeks. And that's really unfortunate because I haven't been there, and now I am.
Yeah, you're there because you know what's going on. Like, dude, like we all know what's at stake here. So you would think that there would be a little bit more conversation about that, a little more kind of, I don't know, realism about what's going on or the situation, but there's none of that. And it's still the same exact quotes. And that makes it really difficult because it makes it run hollow, or like saying that the fans need to be at this game, for the players and all of that. And that's cool to say and all, but it's like a lot of the fans don't even get to see the players that much because it's the only times that really we get to see them are in the off season or in a media presser after a practice. There's not a lot of these, one-off articles, these one-off videos, there's just not a lot of that. And so it's like, you can say that you wish that people knew the players better, but what have you really done to allow the fans to get to know the players better? I mean,
it's not there. It's not.
Oh,
and that was, I remember the Baylor Plus stuff, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too long, but like, how are fans connecting to this team? And I've said it on other podcasts, and I continue to reiterate it. Who is the face of this program? They've given Sawyer a little bit more leeway. That's a little too late. That should have been going on since the beginning of the season. And yeah, especially in the transfer portal era, like, who are you connecting to? Who are the guys that have been around that you're going to connect to? And Baylor fans don't have a reason to show up for the players when they don't really know them. You got to give them a platform. And in prepping for these games, you and I both, like, we go and listen to press conferences of opposing coach, whoever. Well, then they're having media availabilities with several players multiple times.
Yeah.
And I remember Auburn game specifically, right before the Baylor game. And it was just like a free for all of all of their players. Now, Auburn might not be the best example considering the season that they've ultimately had, but it was just, at least there was that ability to listen and hear and communicate with. And I don't put a lot of stock in that. Of, hey, let's listen to. I mean, let's go to support the team. I'm going to support Baylor. I'm going to feel like I need to support Baylor because that's my school. But you haven't given us an opportunity to feel connected to this team for the most part. Outside of Sawyer, I mean, they've done that more and more. But like, hey, like, you might have one of the best tight ends in the country, and we've never heard from him.
Never heard from him, not
And
once.
so, like, that's very frustrating for me from the media perspective, but I can imagine as fans who don't live in both worlds. And just go down the list of guys that we've never really gotten to know.
Yep. Ashton Hawkins, Michael Trigg being the two kind of most obvious ones that stand out. So, yeah, it's been kind of interesting to follow that. Real quick, Sawyer Robertson has something to remind you about.
Want the latest information about your favorite team? Try out SIGM 365 premium content the next 3 months for just $5 by clicking the link below.
And now back to the Bearcast. So as far as this game, Colt, I think the first place I want to start here, because it's become obviously pretty apparent that Baylor's not going to be able to stop the run all season long. There's no reason to believe that anything is going to change for them from a run defense standpoint. So UCF, they're running the football. And they've been running all over the Big 12 this year. They're averaging 213 yards per game against Big 12 teams and 5.7 yards per carry. They have been really consistent. And I want to say they don't have a single Big 12 game where they've rushed for under like 190 yards even. And so that's kind of where I look at it and go, okay, so you're basically showing up and UCF's already going to have about 190 and could have like 250 rushing yards on you if you continue to play run defense like Baylor has. That's really scary to kind of know that that's how this game is basically going to start off, because the defenses that they've played against are better than Baylor's. I mean, or as good at least.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, they have two guys that are really explosive in their running back room. One of them, Jaden Nixon, is like, if he touches the ball, I don't know how many, I don't know how many carries he has for over 20, 30, 40 yards this season, but it's like his average for the season is 12.7 yards per carry. And
he had a huge kick return against Baylor when he played for Oklahoma State back in 2022.
Is that yeah, I don't remember. Yeah.
That was the year that Baylor lost like 36-25. It was a big game. And yeah, he had a kick return, and now he's at UCF actually playing as a running back and being their number 2 back, but very fast.
Yeah.
Very
and
cool.
So, yeah, I mean, which is crazy to say this, and I'm going to pull up their rushing stats. So for just Big 12 play only, looking through, Kansas State, 205 yards rushing, Kansas, 199, Cincinnati, 191, West Virginia, 255. And they don't throw the ball that well. So you would think on paper, hey, we're just going to load the box. But we haven't seen the willingness to do that from Dave Aranda of just, hey, we're just going to play straight up on the outside and see what happens. Maybe this is a game he throws caution to the wind and finally does it. It'd be awesome if he did, just to see what happened, because we haven't seen it at all. But yeah, I mean, you're starting in a hole, especially when you can't run the football yourself. I really like what we saw from Michael Turner last week, but Bryson Washington beat up. We know that Dawson Pendergrass hasn't played all season. Baylor just doesn't have the horses there to keep up in a game where you're just trying to melt the clock. And I think that's hurt the defense this year. But the bigger factor in this game is they want to win a 20-11 game, or play in that type of game like they did with Cincinnati of all teams. And that was a weird game. Cincinnati wins 20-11, but UCF controlled the clock in that game for the entirety of that game.
Yeah.
And so like they're very capable of
But
doing
since
that.
he controlled the scoreboard, UCF didn't score until the final like 2 minutes of that
Right, but
game.
they're gonna be able to run the football and possess the ball. And if you're
Yeah.
thinking we're just gonna score points and we're able to score and win this game, you might not get the ball if you can't stop the run. So hopefully we see Dave Aranda do something, because at the end of the day, if you're a Baylor fan, you want them to win this game regardless of what happens. And that gives them the best chance to win this game, is go out there and figure out how to shut down the run. Taven Jackson's fine, but I'm willing to give up a slant that goes for 80 yards if that's what it comes down to stop the run, because that's what they want to do first and foremost.
And they haven't really shown the ability to score a bunch of points through the air.
Right.
Like that just has not been their MO all season long. I don't think their receivers are that good based on what we've seen so far this year. They have a few capable guys, but it's not anything crazy. I mean, their best receiver has 2 touchdowns this year, or their second best receiver. Their best receiver hasn't even scored this year. So I think that is the area. Try to slow down the run. I know Sam Bradshaw, who writes for us on the premium side of things, he mentioned that UCF's run game is very boom or bust. They have a high percentage of explosive plays in the run game, but consistency wise, they will give up tackles for loss. They will have moments where they're not, running the ball consistently up the middle, and then they'll spring a big one on you. That's kind of the thing that is a little bit scary here for Baylor, because Baylor hasn't been able to stop explosive runs.
Yep.
It's been a consistent, steady stream of them. So in theory, if they can get UCF behind the chains a couple times, they might be able to get some stops. And that's what you're hoping for in this game, is that you can force a 2nd and 12 that forces UCF to have to throw the ball twice.
Yeah.
That's really the best case scenario for Baylor in this match.
Yeah. And I don't know how they go about getting there. It just because it hasn't been. I mean, they're in conference play is giving up 4.7 yards per carry, which is 11th in the Big 12, and then 13th in total rushing yards allowed. And that's with teams rushing, basically saying, "Hey, we're going to run it 41 times a game, and we're still going to do it." Like it just, yeah. I mean, it's not good, and we've known that. And I think that's where the frustration lies with this defense, is that we have gone all season for the most part, outside of the Arizona State game, which gave me some hope, a little bit of hope, but it's just been so inconsistent. And regardless of injuries, at this point of the season, if it was going to flash, it was going to flash. Like I think that you would have seen it, and we just haven't. And last year, I think, was probably a decent rush defense type of season, considering where they were in 2023. But it wasn't great, and it's only gotten worse since last year. And so I don't know. Maybe over the next 4 games, they really surprise me. I just don't have high expectations.
Absolutely. So on the other side of the ball, Baylor's offense has been really good this year. Baylor's offense has also been pretty bad the last 2 games. I mean, that's just is what it is. They haven't scored enough points. I know that a lot of people have been mentioning, well, when you have a bad defense, it's hard for the offense to score, but I mean, you still got to be able to put up some points. Yeah. I mean, it's not like there's this pressure when the game is 27-20 against Cincy with 8 minutes left. Like, you're still very much in that game. If you would have been scoring earlier in the game, it might have been a closer game at the end, but they weren't. Yeah. And they didn't score for 29 and a half minutes. And then the TCU game, they had another really long drought in that game that allowed TCU to pull away. Bunch of 3 and outs. It's just been a really inconsistent offense because they don't have an elite running game. It's very hit or miss. It's pretty mediocre, actually, a little below average. And the pass game, while it's good, it's not lighting it up efficiency-wise. Yeah. It's not super efficient from a accuracy standpoint, from a Sawyer standpoint. He's been a little erratic the last few weeks. Some turnovers as well, which has been a big problem. They've been turning it over a lot, and that's putting a lot more pressure on the defense than it really is on the offense. So it's been pretty bad, but there are some areas in this game where you kind of look around and go, they're going to need to move the football. They're going to need to move the ball pretty well in this game, I think, to keep up. And now it's just a question of, can they do that? Can they get back to the Baylor offense that we saw early in the year?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously one of the biggest issues with this is the run game. And I think that run game, the lack of run game consistently is affecting the passing game. And because last year we saw once that run game got going, things got easier on Sawyer. And if you look back to that stretch before in Big 12 play, before they were running the football, that looked a lot like what we see from Sawyer this year. It was just taking shots, but not necessarily open shots. The inconsistency in the intermediate game when the safeties aren't down in the box stopping the run. I think it's just kind of been an unfortunate reality of injuries and, I mean, truly just injuries. You can't run the football like they want to with the injuries that they've had with Bryson Washington. The other part of this is that total gained turnovers for the season 2 for Baylor, total loss 12. That's dead last. That's conference play only. 12 lost turnovers in 5 games. And I mean, like, that's not sustainable. And I understand they're playing catch up a lot, et cetera, but like, as good as you are, that's going to kill your efficiency numbers. Those are drives ending without missing a field goal, without a punt. You're just giving the ball to the other team. And that doesn't include, I'm going to pull it up, how many times they've gone for it on 4th down and not gotten it in Big 12 play. Currently, they have 16 attempts, so 7 times, non-conversion, 16 attempts. So 7 times they've given the ball back to the opposing offense on a 4th down. So you throw 12 live play turnovers plus 7. So 19 times the offense has given the ball back to the opponent with nothing to show for it. Not even a punt. Right. And so, like,
and put pressure on the defense.
Yeah. So it's just this conundrum of one thing after another. And it's good when it's working, but this year it hasn't. And that's been, and it could flip. I think sometimes the law of averages play out over the course of the season. Unfortunately, Baylor's just not had any success in either one of those areas that have allowed their offense and ultimately their defense to have the success it possibly could.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you mentioned them playing catch up, but just looking back on, I mean, like the Arizona State game, those 3 turnovers were all, game is pretty close. The Cincinnati game, I mean, your turnovers allowed Cincinnati to pull away, so yeah. I guess, but you weren't chasing points.
Well, I think about the TCU
late in the TCU game.
TCU, Kansas State.
No, but K-State was Bryson Washington fumbling the ball when you're trying to put the lead of the game away. I don't remember what the other turnover in that game was. Oh yeah, it was a Sawyer interception in the red zone. Which again, you're not playing catch up. That's where it's like, I can't really make a big excuse for them.
Oh, I'm not making
like they've been down by 20 and then turning it over.
I mean, it's just, you're literally turning the football over in every single game. And I mean, I'll pull up the turnover margin here again for game by game and go through those.
It's -10 on the year.
Yeah, so their total lost turnovers for the entire season is 16. So these are the numbers. There was none in the Auburn game. So starting with Auburn, 0, SMU 2, Samford 2, Arizona State 3, Oklahoma State 1. That game is the only game Baylor has had less than 2 turnovers. Two turnovers. So Kansas State 2, TCU 4, Cincy 2.
And they still lost the turnover battle against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, they're still -1, so, or -1. So it's just, I mean, we can harp on the defense, and I think that's where it ultimately goes back to. But like, this offense hasn't held up to its end of the bargain outside of total stats. And Cincy, you scored 20 points, but TCU, you scored 29 offensive points. Kansas State, you scored 28 offensive points. And you're fortunate you got out of the Kansas State game with the victory because your defense scored you a touchdown. So, and they scored a defensive touchdown against TCU. And so I don't have faith in this offense right now to just go out and get it done. And that's unfortunate. Like, I mean, they're going to get their yards and they're going to get their stats for the most part, but to consistently put the ball into the end zone, I don't trust it. Even against UCF. I mean, I thought they were going to do it against Cincinnati, and then they struggled for the majority of that game.
Laid an egg against Cincinnati for sure, especially the passing game. That was a really not great performance there. So a couple stats to look at here. The Baylor offense, the passing attack, they have 5 games of over 318 passing yards, including 2 400-yard performances that came at the beginning of the year. UCF has allowed just 1 team to throw for more than 200 yards. That was Kansas, and they threw for just 235 yards. That is not great. UCF's been allowing teams to run on them some. They do have an outlier performance against Kansas State that is dragging their numbers down a little bit in the run game. But in general, they've been solid on defense, kind of everywhere. Yeah. And I'm not going to say they're an elite defense, but they are very solid. They'll give up some yards. They'll give up some points occasionally. But really throughout the year, they've been consistent, physical, aggressive. and they're kind of just, hey, we're going to get some stops with our defense. We're going to try to get the team off the field, and then we're going to run the football. And those are the two things that we're going to try to do really well this year, because we don't quite have the passing attack that we need to, win a bunch of games or to be a contender in the Big 12. But they do have the run game and the defense to allow them to stay in games, which they've done all year long.
Yeah. And so currently number 5 in the Big 12 conference play only, so 4 games. Number 5 in yards per play at 5.16. Total yards allowed through those 4 games is number 4 in the Big 12 at 326. And I mean, I think that is like salt in the wounds for Baylor fans. This is Scott Frost's first year.
Yeah.
And I know that there was talent there that, was left over by Gus Malzahn. I think they did a good job stockpiling transfers, etc. But
they brought in a bunch of transfers.
Yeah, they brought in a ton. And so, but that's the frustrating part when you look at year 1 with UCF, year 2 with Houston, and then there's some other ones. West Virginia's down there, but like Baylor shouldn't be number 12, and I think that's just salt in the wound for total yards allowed as number 12 in the Big 12. I mean, Baylor's number 12. Yeah, number 12 in the Big 12. Whatever, how many teams are in there? Yards per play is not good. UCF. I mean, it's just dang. Like, I don't even want to look at this. It just depresses me. But like, yeah, I mean, that there's just no excuse for that to happen, and it very, very frustrating. Look at Arizona. Now I'm going to go on a tangent here. Arizona's number 3 in the Big 12 in yards per play defense, and
they were horrible last year.
Yeah, I mean, where does the flip go? So Arizona last year was number 14 in Big 12 play and at 6.63 yards per play, and then flip that to number 3 this year
with the first-year head coach. So this is year 2 for him, and they've improved a lot.
Yeah, and so. I had hope for this defense specifically, and I know I'm going back to the defense now, but UCF, their defense is much better than I expected it to be. And now they have a tough upcoming schedule, like we talked about. They play 3 of their last 4 after the Baylor game are against top 25 teams, but they play Oklahoma State in there as well. So those numbers are going to fluctuate. But if we're sitting here with Baylor right now, number 5 and number 4 in these categories, scoring defense. Like, let's even look at scoring defense for UCF.
Very good.
Yeah, and they can run the ball. They can control the clock, so that helps. So in conference play, they're number 5 in the Big 12 at 23.5 points allowed. Baylor number 14 at 34.2. And that's just Oklahoma State and West Virginia are the only 2 worse. And Colorado's, Kansas is at number 12, and they're 4 points better than Baylor. And so it's just this massive gap. And I mean, shout out to UCF. I mean, I didn't expect that from Scott Frost's defense this year. And that, like I said, this is going to change. It's going to fluctuate. They're going to give up more points in the back half of the season for them. But it's a big step up and for them, and makes me realize even more where Baylor has just fallen short.
Yeah, they've fallen off a cliff, and it's just not good when first-year head coaches at a program that struggled the year before are now, putting some things together at least, or at least being competing with you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're only a 3.5 point favorite at home. So that means on the road, this would be like,
pick them,
a push. Yeah. Pick them. And so I'm kind of just, that's just a problem. It makes you kind of be at a loss of words. I will say this, just kind of closing thoughts here. The Cincinnati game, Cincinnati was up 20-3, and they kind of sat on the football and whatever. UCF scored late. That's fine. I think that game was a little less competitive than the final score indicates. The other game that I'll point to is the Kansas game. It was rainy as heck. And I think if there wasn't a lot of rain, Kansas did do a lot moving the football through like the first 3 quarters. And then UCF, because they can run the ball better, were able to establish some things because of the weather in my eyes, because Kansas's offense completely fell off once the weather came in. They also have a narrow win over Jacksonville State at the beginning of the year. Jacksonville State's pretty good, but that is a game where UCF found their quarterback finally in Taven Jackson, and that kind of allowed them to win that game. So a few things there that kind of do put some cracks into what they've done. They got beat up pretty good by Kansas State. So those are just the things that you can point to say, okay, well, if Baylor maybe shows up, plays well, maybe this is a close game. Maybe Baylor can find a way to win. And this is also me saying that UCF's nowhere near a perfect team, even though we've sat here and said, oh, they're doing this really well, doing this really well. it's also kind of like, yeah, Baylor's had similar things happen for them this year. It's just UCF has been more consistent, and UCF played nobody in the non-conference, which helps your record.
Yeah, and then the expectations drastically different for Baylor fans. Or like it's just the mentality of how you're approaching. Because after that Jacksonville State game, didn't think they're going to be that good. Even after the North Carolina win, I was still skeptical because of North Carolina. Then they lose 3 straight, and it's the West Virginia. That's what not necessarily scares me. I don't think Baylor's West Virginia bad this year, but they beat them 45-13. And so it's, that would be akin to Baylor beating Oklahoma State 45-13. And they didn't. And so I think I'm just looking at it from the perspective of expectations versus results. UCF has exceeded them. They're on a different momentum level. I think they're going to have much more to play for in this particular game. And man, I hope Baylor comes out with a win. And I don't, honestly, we're going to pick them here in a minute, but it's hard for me not to pick Baylor to win, even though I've talked like this, because I don't think UCF is that good. And I'm still waiting on Baylor just to kind of put a game together. I mean, they haven't this entire season where it's just clean start to finish. And that goes back to the offense not turning the football over. And that's probably where I'll go with this. Like, if they don't turn the football over, they probably win, but we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and it's also kind of tough because this is likely the last game where Baylor could put it all together. Like, I think they're going to have real issues against the other 3 teams that they play.
Yeah.
As far as putting together a full, complete game, hard to expect it. All right, Colt, who do you got in this one? UCF at Baylor, 11 a.m., Baylor homecoming. The game's on ESPNU. Baylor's a 3.5-point favorite. The over-under is 59.5. Who are you taking in this one?
Yeah, are we picking straight up? I mean, do I get a chance to pick it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you got to pick it straight up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go to the line. I mean, considering everything I've said, I think Baylor has a better high in talent in this game, and I'll pick Baylor to win. And so, considering the over and under, I'll stick right around there. Let's just go like 33-27 type game. Baylor wins, and that gives me right at 60. It keeps them covering the spread. Man, I just don't. I don't have any confidence. Like, if we were doing confidence picks on these, like confidence points, it would be like a 0,
a 1.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, I know. Okay, so here's what I do know. Since he's not, they're a good team. Like, we know that they're a good team. TCU's whatever. I mean, they struggled against West Virginia this last week. I just don't trust Baylor right now, and I'm going to pick them to win, but that's not saying like I'm fully confident that's going to happen.
Yeah, I picked them last week. I was the only staff member that picked them, and it was a 7-point game with 8 minutes left. And I was like, oh, okay, might be seeing something here. And then since he converts a 4th down, and then it's a touchdown for Sorsby. So I've officially boycotted picking Baylor in any more games this year. That's just kind of where I'm at. And so I will be picking UCF to win this game in a very, very close one. I'm going to pick it to be really, really close. So if Baylor does win, I'm kind of hedging my bet a little bit here. But I think UCF's probably going to score 33, 31 points, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think Baylor's going to be able to match that with the way that UCF can run the football. So I'm going to put it 31-30. UCF wins this game, crushes dreams. Baylor loses on homecoming. And then this whole just conversation about Dave Aranda just really ramps up leading into Saturday night and then Sunday, of course, just because you're sitting there at 4-5, having just lost homecoming to a UCF team with the first-year head coach. Not great.
Yeah.
Not great at all.
Yeah, you got to figure out how to get this win, or those things do go crazy. And that's unfortunate reality. And we've been doing this, it seemed like these ups and downs of the last 4 years. And, I mean, I even remember going back to the 2022 TCU game and how close those conversations, or how much those conversations could have changed had they won that game. They lose that. And kind of just that hit the, that was like the skid into all of this. And yeah, you can't lose this game. And not that it changes ultimately anything for final decisions on this coaching staff, but yeah, I mean, you got to win it if you want any chance to get out of it.
Yeah, and it's just another one of those things where it's like they've been so bad at home since 2022, just like horrific at home against Power 4 teams. And then you also look at from the perspective of it's homecoming, and we're probably going to be sitting there listening to a bunch of boos in that game from the small crowd that's probably going to be there. It's probably going to be a very bad environment. And really, we haven't seen that many bad environments since I've been covering the team, just because, it never really got to a situation where Baylor has, been in a situation where they might fire a coach. Like,
it hasn't happened since 2006. I mean, that was when, 2007, which that's the year before they hired Art Briles. And I mean, that's, nothing performance related has a coach been fired. And so we'll find out how Baylor fans act on Saturday.
Feel like it's going to be pretty bad. I think I know how it's, I think I have a good sense of how it's going to go. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully the guys show up and the players can find a way to get a win, because it's been a tough year for them. I know that. So it'd be nice to see that for Baylor to get a win on homecoming in front of the fans that are there. But thanks for listening this week. This has been the Bearcast on SicEm365.com.
Join Sikkim 365 Premium on a $1 for 1 month trial to read our experts' notes and insights. Know about high school commits, off-season transfers, coaching staff changes, and so much more before the rest. Also, download the Sikkim 365 app on your iPhone today to get instant notifications of breaking news, read up on the latest inside info, easily interact with other Baylor fans on our forums, and get alerts for anything published by your favorite staff members.